So this is the Pironman from SunFounder. It is a Raspberry Pi 4 case. The folks over at SunFounder sent this to me recently, and normally in these videos we would do kind of a build process showing you how to put everything together. But since Jay over at Learn Linux TV already did that, I thought we would take a different approach. Since I've already built this case and have gone through everything, I thought it would be more interesting to do a teardown and talk about each of the different things that I've encountered going through building it, tearing it apart repeatedly, and just kind of walking through what you can expect with this case. So with that said, let's switch angles. Let's point the camera down at the top of my desk and take a look at the Pironman Raspberry Pi 4 case from SunFounder. Okay, so this is the Pironman. Well, this is the side of the Pironman where you're going to have power, HDMI 1 and 2, audio out. What's nice actually about this case though is this power gets moved over to here. It actually moves it to the back of the case, and I really do appreciate that. I like having as much on the back as humanly possible. The one thing I wish they had done was actually also moved at least one of these HDMI ports to the back so that you don't have a cable, sticking out the side in order to use it like as a, just so you don't have a case poking, or a cable poking straight out when you're trying to use this on a desk or a shelf or whatever. It would have been nice if they could have come up with a way to move one of these HDMI ports to the back. But since we're here, let's actually take a quick look at this. Of course, these are gonna be the standard ports, a couple of USB 2s, a couple of USB 3s, gigabit LAN. You've got a pass-through right here for the camera cable that would actually connect right inside, right there next to that HDMI port between the HDMI and the audio. We've also got a micro SD card slot right here, as again, like I mentioned earlier, that USB-C power. You'll also notice that one of these USB 3 ports is taken up with this bridge, and basically this bridge is just a USB-A to USB-C, and that is how we actually access the additional storage that this case allows us to have. So right now I've got my operating system running off of this SanDisk USB drive right here. It's like a 128 gig, I think. Yeah, 128 gig USB. That's what I'm using for my operating system. And then when we get inside, I'll show you the extra storage that you can get here, or use here rather. And over here on this side, we've got an intake fan or an exhaust fan. I don't remember how it's set up. I think this is set up actually as exhaust. But basically we've got an RGB exhaust fan here that is actually on a nice little tower cooler that you can kind of see through there. We'll get to more of that later, but then we've also got a GPIO expansion board. Rather than being up here, they've moved it down here to get it out of the way. Again, great that it's close to the bottom. Absolutely love the layout on this. Then if we take a look over here at the front, we've got some branding right up there at the top, right? Ooh, man, that light. There we go. There's Pironman. There's our branding. And then down here, we've got just a little teeny tiny OLED screen that gives us information about, CPU and RAM usage, that sort of thing. A little IR receiver right there, and then our power button right there. So with that said, let's actually take some of this apart and kind of talk about what is inside. Okay, so for this teardown process, in fact, more for the build process, I guess, it would be really super helpful if you were to get yourself a magnetic screwdriver. The screwdriver that comes with this, it does actually come with a little screwdriver like this, but it's not magnetic, and I really feel like it should have been, just so that, when you're moving screws around, if you drop something, it's just easier to use a magnetic tip screwdriver. So definitely get yourself a magnetic screwdriver. Let's see, which side do we want to take off first? So I guess we're gonna start right here. So I'm gonna take all these screws out. One thing I will say about this is it uses a lot of screws, basically a total of 10 screws, 2 on each edge and then 2 in the middle to help hold the heatsink down for the fan, or the tower cooler, just to kind of help hold it in place and add some rigidity to the case overall. One thing I will say, there we go. One thing I will say about this, when I was putting it together, I screwed up and I was actually trying to put the acrylic on the inside. Again, luckily, Jay over at Learn Linux TV helped me with that, and was gracious enough to not make me feel like I was dumb. So yeah, it was definitely, I was having a moment when I was putting this thing together, trying to understand why it just wouldn't And so it's because the acrylic goes on the outside. So there's one of our panels. That's our I guess our right side panel. If that's the front. Yeah, if that's the front, then this would be the right side. And you really can't see much going on here because we really haven't gotten too much farther into here. Now, here's the thing. These side panels hold all of these other panels together. So that was kind of what made this case a bit more difficult, in my opinion, to put together. It was a bit of a tedious process. The instructions were fine, but it wasn't just the way everything was being kind of held together with the side panels made things a little bit more difficult to put together. Again, Jay did a great job on his video showing how to put this together and talking about some of the nuances of getting this thing put together with the least amount of frustration possible. And then you'll probably see as I pull this acrylic side panel off, the whole thing is just going to basically fall apart. Those out. So here's our other side panel. Obviously the fan is on there. I will say this fan does only go in one way because of the way the captive nuts are on the other side. The other side of this fan doesn't have the captive option here, so it has to be set up this way. It's the only way it'll go together unless you've got your own mounting solution for that fan. So just something to keep in mind there. But that's what's going on there. Of course, we've got our cutout there for the GPIO pins that have been moved. So, if we just kind of take this thing apart, that'll take off that front panel there, and I don't. Oh, yeah. And then we've got, so basically on the inside, we've got RGB, an RGB strip in here that has, positive, negative, and data on there for doing different things like we saw in the intro to this video. Fairly easy. They're just like that. They're fairly easy to deal with, so we can just set that aside now. And then of course the last thing that we've really got here is the front panel, and it's actually been connected two different ways. One is the power button, and all of the lines off of this come back over to here. So if we just go ahead and unhook those like so, and then maybe we can get those out of there too. That'd be neat. Here we go. Like that. And then the last thing here is actually this ribbon cable that you can see right there. That is for the screen on the front. So let's get in here. And then if everything goes well, we can kind of jiggle these wires through, and there we go. So there's our front panel. I'll take it apart. Again, you've got just a power button there, a receiver for the IR blaster that just kind of passes through to here, and then of course the screen. So we'll set that aside, and then we can kind of get a better idea of what's going on. We're starting to anyway get a better idea of what's kind of going on here. Obviously, this from here up is the Raspberry Pi 4, and then down here we've got a daughter board that they've built for this case. So what I'm going to do is take off these 4 bottom screws so we can take a look underneath here and talk about one of the additional features, in addition to being a great looking case, one of the additional features that you get with this. So here's our bottom plate, and then it's got some rubber anti-slip feet there. But what you may have noticed while I was rambling there is that it does have support for an M.2 slot. There we go. The one thing that I need to say here, let me turn that upside down for me anyway, is this is a SATA M.2. This is not an NVMe M.2. This case will not support NVMe. This again is a SATA connection here. So just something to keep in mind there. And the other thing that I wanted to call attention to on this board is that when we were taking a look at the, kind of the light show that it does, the entire case does, one thing that I thought was interesting that I hadn't seen before is actually right on these corners. You see those 4 white squares there. And if we flip it over, there's 2 more there. There are actually 2 more up. Oops. Right up under here on both sides there. Those are also LEDs to help keep the the light show going more fluidly, so you don't have the dead spots that you might otherwise have with regards to the light show that it does. And I really love that they incorporated LEDs throughout the daughter board, again, to help with the continuity of the RGB there. So yeah, that's kind of what we've got going on there. Again, we've got this expansion card here that plugs into the GPIO pins on this side of the Raspberry Pi, goes to this ribbon cable, and then connects down inside here to move those GPIO pins right there. So I dig that that's kind of out of the way and still usable, when we've got this on here about like so. You've still got access to those GPIO pins if you wanted to have a cool looking desktop solution while you're doing, coding and that sort of thing. You've still got access to that. Absolutely love it. I really kind of think that's kind of the gist of it. The performance that you're going to get out of this is going to be Raspberry Pi for performance. So while the case looks great and has a great aesthetic and whatnot, it's not going to bring much to the table as far as performance, other than possibly using whatever you're going to benefit from, this Ice Cube tower cooler that comes with it, as well as the Ice Cube 40 millimeter fan. I don't have a caliper or a ruler or anything here, but basically that's going to be the most determinant thing about the performance boost or lack of boost that you're going to get with this case. One other thing that I wanted to mention, as obvious, I'm going to put this case back together here. One thing that I wanted to mention is that all of the screws are the same size. So you don't have to be any more organized with this case than you would any other time, because if you look, all of these screws are the same. So the assembly process, it just came, like in a bag. Oh, I should also mention this. So it uses thermal pads to connect, or to kind of bridge the gap between the tower cooler. Of course, if I were to do that right, between the tower cooler, you can actually see them in there, and the Raspberry Pi. What I love is they actually send you 2 sets of these. So if you've got to take it apart, whatever, or maybe after a period of time they dry up, they don't work as well anymore, you actually get extras and you don't have to worry about that later on. So I think at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and put this thing back together. And there we are, about 10 minutes later, everything back together. Looks like it should be good to go. No extra screws. And I will say, the more you build this, the easier it gets. But one last thing I almost forgot. Of course, we can't do anything with it without storage. So let's get that in there, and like that. And there we go. Everything should be good to go at this point. Okay guys, so there you go. There is the Pironman Raspberry Pi 4 case from SunFounder. Definitely let me know in the comment section down below if this is something that you're interested in. Of course, I will have links to all of the available resources in the description, so be sure to check that out. Also, if you'd like a more in-depth review of how to build this thing, like I said, Jay from Learn Linux TV did a great job on that, and I'll have his video linked down in the description as well. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I do want to thank you guys for spending a few minutes of your day with me today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.